We're going to build a side project that's going to put you ahead of roughly 90 to 95% of software developers. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic, and I'm not just pulling that number out of my hat. I'm saying that because of how the numbers actually break down. I did a little bit of research, do a back of the envelope calculation. There's around 36 million professional developers out there. Most use AI. That means that we're using ChatGPT, Copilot, Cursor, Claude, whatever. This is now the baseline. But when you look at developers who are actually building with AI, using the APIs, wiring models into products, and then grounding them with data, this number drops off dramatically, right? A reasonable estimate could be like 10 to 15%. So if you do what we're about to do in this video, you're going to be ahead of roughly 90 to 95% of developers. I don't like those magical 99% numbers that people throw out. And this isn't because AI is rare, but building with AI actually is pretty rare right now. And I experienced this personally when I tried to hire my replacement at the last startup where I left, where we were looking for an AI engineer. Ultimately, we didn't find one. We ended up training up one of the people that was already on the team, which I suggested because I'm like, this guy could learn all this stuff. Why are we hiring outside the organization for something we could train in-house? A lot of teams don't believe that. And for some use cases, you really can't just build the expertise in-house. It's probably more risky than going out and hiring somebody, which is why the salaries are getting astronomical when it comes to AI engineering. But instead of just talking about this or going into this hype and doom cycle or this doom and gloom cycle people want to get into, I want to actually build something with you. And if you follow along, you can go into the repo in the show notes. And I don't really do these watch and type tutorials. This tutorial or this repo, this project that I've added in the show notes is going to show you exactly what to build and how to do it and some of the ideas and concepts behind what we're building. So here's the idea. We're going to build an AI advisory board. You can ask questions like, what would Theo Browne say about Node.js? What would ThePrimeagen say about using Vim? What would Alex Hormozi say about sales? These are all big YouTubers in case you're not tapped in like that into the YouTube culture, right? But these are famous people that have hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of hours of material on YouTube. And we're going to be able to talk to these people. And based on what they've said on their YouTube channels, we can get some answers back from them. That's the idea of the project. For example, you could even ask something like, hey, what would Brian, me, say about testing? And instead of getting a generic AI answer, you get responses grounded in what those people have actually said based on the transcripts that we're going to get off of YouTube. And yes, you could dig through hundreds of hours of YouTube videos or thousands or whatever, or you could just ask a question and get an answer instantly. That's why this is kind of cool. This is a real use case. And I stole this directly from a student in our applied AI cohort who built this using thousands of transcripts from influencers they follow. It was so good. I was like, yeah, I got to yoink this real quick and share it with you. All right, step one, the first thing you're going to do, go to Google AI Studio, generate an API key. We're going to use Gemini because it's free. It's not because it's the best, it's just free. I would use OpenAI, Anthropic, or whatever. They're not free, but they're a little bit better. Add this API key to some sort of environment file, requirements.txt or .env or whatever. Now you just need a backend route that your front end can hit. You're going to make a really simple front end that you can send some messages to. A little form with a text box, and you're going to pass that message to your backend. I use Next.js. It becomes super duper simple to do this. But if you're using Claude or Cursor, one of these tools right now, you can simply just ask it to build out this really simple front end and connect it to a back end. Using Next.js, Python, or one of these full stack frameworks makes this really trivial to do. The library that I used for this in a TypeScript project was Google's generative AI library. They have a TypeScript, Rust version, whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? So now inside that route that you've created, you initialize the library with that key. So what your route does is receive a message from the user. You send that to Gemini. Gemini sends back the text. You return that text. That's it. This is the most basic way to use a large language model. It's literally just an API call. You take a message, you pass that message to this library, which will then do some sort of large language model activity on it, and it will return you a response. You say, hey, what's the weather in France? And it says, well, the weather in France is typically blah, 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 blah. This isn't magic. It's just an API with a different payload. And this is the bare bones minimum thing you can do. And it's just to get started. Play around with it, console log what comes back so you understand, hey, this isn't magic. This is just a different API that I'm using where instead of getting back structured data, I'm getting back a bunch of text along with some structured data. So console log the stuff, and then before you move along, just inspect the payload that's getting returned back and see if anything is interesting to you. So this app at this point is pretty useless. It's just like a wrapper around Google's Gemini, which nobody would really pay for. But you'd be surprised how many companies are basically doing this. They're taking some sort of request from a user, some sort of message, and just passing that directly into some large language model like Grok, OpenAI, Anthropic, or Gemini and getting a response back. Some companies actually made some money doing this. I don't suggest you do this. We're going to make this way better in the next step, which is to add a system prompt with some guardrails. Now we're going to make this system a little less dumb. Right now, your app will just answer anything. It's just literally a wrapper around Gemini. We don't want that, so we add a system prompt. These are instructions that just run before the user message. Example might be, you are an AI advisor for software developers. You only answer coding questions. You give practical advice. If the question is not coding related, say you don't know. Now we have some guardrails. This gives your app boundaries, it gives it a little bit of a personality, and gives it a clear focus for what it should do. Without this, people will do stupid stuff or maybe even evil stuff. There was literally a case where Chipotle, I think, had a chatbot on their site and people were asking it to solve linked lists. You don't want that. Tokens are not free. We're using the free tier for Gemini, but tokens in general are not free. Tokens basically are a way to measure the amount of words that a large language model is working on or has worked on, right? So you send a paragraph full of words, right? And the model will say, that's this many tokens. And then it will decide what to charge you based on how many tokens you've sent it. And it will send you a whole bunch of words and it will say, this is how many tokens I've produced now to answer your question. So if people are asking things like, hey, solve a linked list or write me out a novel or something like that, well, you're going to be paying for that activity. So one of the easiest ways to prevent people from abusing your system is just having a strong system prompt saying, what are we going to do? What will we not do? And what should you do when somebody asks you to do something outside the boundaries of what we've agreed on? So in my system prompt, I might say only respond in TypeScript or only give code samples that have to do with this particular concept. Don't overthink this. Prompt engineering gets a bad rap and it's not wizardry. It's just, what should this thing do? What should it not do? Now we're going to kick things up a whole lot. This is where things get pretty interesting to me. We stop being generic. We're going to create a simple JSON file and we're going to structure it like this. It should be an array, and in that array, you're going to have objects, and those objects are going to have a few keys: advisor, topic, keywords, content. Example, we want to be able to ask questions about Theo Browne. So we're going to say advisor, Theo, topic, testing, and then content. What did he actually say about this thing? Now, in your route that you're handling that API request, and you just do this for each influencer or person that you care about. Right now, we haven't scraped YouTube. We're going to get to that shortly. But before that, all you want to do is make this information architected in such a way that a large language model would be able to easily look it up. This is why you have the advisor, and then the name of that advisor, and then the topic, the thing that they're talking about, and then finally what they said about that topic. You can have as many or as few of these as you want. This could be a little bit manual. You could have an AI write this. You could look up a few of their videos, get the transcripts or whatever. You could look at articles people have written. However you want to make this, this is probably going to be more time consuming than a lot of the other work we're going to do. But this is just to get you started. Now in your backend route, you simply import that file and then you stringify it and you add it into your system prompt. So your prompt now becomes, hey, you have access to this knowledge base. Use it to answer questions. Do not make things up. And then you simply supply the knowledge base. Now, if you ask a question like, what does ThePrimeagen think about Vim? Or what does Alex Hormozi say about doing sales over the phone? You get an answer grounded in reality. This is the most naive version of RAG that you can build. RAG meaning retrieval augmented generation. What you've done is you've augmented the LLM's knowledge base by simply providing it some data. You've retrieved some data and you've now augmented the response. This doesn't involve vector databases, infrastructure, or anything. It's just structured data. And honestly, this is an okay enough way to start. Now I've made a lot of material that goes deeper into RAG, R-A-G, retrieval augmented generation. And I'll also have that in the show notes along with everything that I'm currently saying. You can take these two repos and get really, really far. But right now, we're going to stay focused and not talk about vector databases because that adds a layer of complexity that's not really needed right now. We can get pretty far with this super simple, naive version of a RAG system. Which leads me to one of the last steps, which is adding real transcripts. And this is where it gets super fun and a lot more powerful. Time to level this thing the hell up, right? We bring in real data. So we're going to use a Python script or Google's Colab. This is an environment where you can run a Python script. And I'm using the YouTube transcript API. That student that I mentioned, he actually was the one that introduced me to this. And you can download transcripts from YouTube if you just have the video ID. Again, this is in the show notes. You can see the exact same scripts. You don't have to write this from scratch. It's really not that difficult. It took me a few tries with Claude to do it. And then I had a pretty good script, which I could run in Colab because I don't have a Python environment set up on my machine. I could just run this script in Colab in the cloud. Boom, I'd get the transcript and then I could dump it back in that project that we're working on right now. So now you've taken some content from YouTube and you have something real, right? Now you want to store that text somewhere, right? You've downloaded the transcript. Now you have a bunch of text. What I did was put it in a folder called transcripts, and then I have a file called the name of the influencer.txt. So for example, if I downloaded something from Theo Browne, I'd have transcripts/theobrowne.txt or theo.txt. That naming convention is important, and I'm going to get to why in just a second. You want the model to easily understand where this is, so you name it after the influencer, primeagen.txt, brianjenny.txt, whatever, right? That way we can give it relevant information based on who you're asking about. If we named it something like pigs.txt, well, how would the model look at your file system and understand how to get that, right? We want to make it easy for Gemini to understand, hey, here's the available data, and then grab that data before making that response. So now we need to retrieve that data. So inside your route, that backend route, all you want to do is simply inspect the message from the user. If it includes the name of the transcript or the name of the influencer whose transcript you have, then inject it into the prompt. It's a conditional injection. This is super naive. No, this is not scalable. That's the whole point. It's supposed to teach you the mental model for how to do this. Now, you could make this a lot more complex by having maybe the folder named after the influencer and then having topics as the TXT files. And then you could say, here's the folder, here's the topic, and then you could kind of figure out which topic versus which influencer to give. The way I did this, that you'll see in that project that I've linked in the show notes, is to simply inspect the message and say, hey, does it include this person's name? And if it includes that person's name, I'm going to go ahead and grab that text file and I'm going to dump it into the system prompt. So now the system prompt has the knowledge base and it has the actual transcript from that person. You can really, really make this more complex and add way more stuff, but you can't dump in everything into that system prompt. And the reason why is eventually this will break if you have too many transcripts, too much data. And this is exactly when you need to add a vector database. You start looking into things like embeddings, semantic search. This is where more of the quote unquote real engineering comes in. And the reason why you'll need to add these additional layers, why you can't just dump in like a Bible's worth of information into these large language models, is they have context windows. They can't just take that much information and do stuff with it. This is exactly why vector databases exist, essentially, because what we're doing is trying to circumvent this by doing weird stuff, by looking in the message and saying, hey, should we add this or add this? It gets really tedious after a while. What you could do instead is break all these documents up, put them in a vector database, then take the user's question, whatever they're asking about, and then send that to the vector database. It would send you all the relevant documents that might relate to that. And then you'd feed those relevant documents, a small subset, to Gemini, to your large language model in the system prompt if you wanted to. And then boom, have amazing answer. And you can even have the citation for the resources. Like it was from this video and this video and this video where he said X, Y, and Z. Pretty cool. And I actually built this for myself because I make a lot of videos now and I like to sometimes reiterate what I say or turn something I've said into an article or just look at how I've said things in the past. Like, hey, what have my opinions been on AI over the last 6 months or something like that? And I can look up what I've said about a certain topic and then see, damn, how dumb was I back then? And how wrong was I 5 months ago about this particular tool or whatever? Now, building this fairly naive project teaches you how to call LLMs programmatically, which is table stakes stuff, which is super important. You learn a little bit about the API service and how they work. You learn how to structure inputs, aka prompt engineering. You learn how to control outputs, aka again, some prompt engineering. You learn a little bit about how retrieval augmented generation works, and you learn how to think about how a real AI system could be built. Now, this is the stuff that companies are actually building, not prompt hacks, not AI agents that replace your entire team. Real systems need real engineering, need real engineers who know how to do this. So here's what I do: get the API call working, add that system prompt, add a small knowledge base of whatever you want. We chose PrimeaGen, Theo Browne, whatever. Add a transcript, add another transcript, make it work, expand it, break it, make it your own. That's a few days of work. And if you actually do it, you'll understand this stuff at a completely different level than the majority, the overwhelming majority of software developers out there who are just working at the surface layer with how to use Claude. If you want the repo, it's in the show notes. If you want the slower version, that's in there too. The slower version is a 5-day email course. Don't just watch it though. I'm not big into making videos where you just watch me type, right? Because that's going to put you in that bottom 90% of people who are just doing that. I want you in that top 5 to 10% because ideally, if you're in that top 5 to 10% and you're watching these kind of videos, then hopefully we can work together someday, either at the same company or I can be in your orbit when you're way up there making the big bucks and you think, you know, that guy, Brian, he was all right. Maybe I should give him a job as the janitor at my multi-billion-dollar business. That's my long-term plan out there. That's my ulterior motive. Anyway, hope you found that helpful. Grab that free stuff in the show notes. Why would you not? See you around.